Hello and welcome everybody to our live webinar today, Revolutionizing Telemetry with Fleet Management. We're excited to have you join us today for this session, packed with valuable insights. Our presenter today is Daniel Bankson, Director of Sales Engineering here at Apica. He will present best practices and key strategies to help you optimize your telemetry through fleet management. We will have a live Q&A session at the end of the presentation to help address any questions. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Daniel.
Thank you, Ben. Welcome everybody to today's webinar. My name is Daniel Bankson. I work on the sales engineering team here at Apica, where we help customers optimize their telemetry pipelines and make sense of observability data. Today, we're going to talk about telemetry collection and how the growing complexity of systems have created this kind of explosion of different telemetry agents and the challenges of actually managing these collectors and agents across different environments. We have, multi-cloud, we have traditional legacy on-premise environments and all kinds of applications. And this scale of things are kind of starting to create some challenges in how we manage our agent fleets out there. And we're also going to take a look at what would a solution look like to be able to manage all your telemetry collectors. So if you look at what are the agent types and how we manage all of this. So out there in the wild now, there's a diverse set of agent types. There's agents for all kinds of systems, applications, devices, cloud environments, Kubernetes environments, data centers. And a lot of times each agent is optimized for specific data sources and telemetry needs. It might be an open telemetry collector sending logs, metrics, and traces. You might have a proprietary vendor agent that are specialized for a certain data set. And you might even run multiple agents per host for different data that you're trying to collect. And with all of this, how do you make sure that you don't have version fragmentation, configuration drift, and so on? How do you know that you have the right configuration on all your different collectors? If you have different tools for managing these agents, for example, several vendors, they give you a proprietary agent, and they might also give you a way to manage those agents, but how do you manage the other agents that we have out there? And when you're looking at open source environments and collectors and looking at open telemetry, or you might even have several different vendors in the monitoring and observability space, and how can you centrally make sure that all of these are on the right version, have the right configuration, and collecting the right data? When you have a pretty large fleet of agents out there and doing manual updates, for example, you might risking having some agents being outdated. You might have some agents that are running a different version, a different configuration than you think they are. And in an incident, for example, maybe one of the most important systems are not reporting the data that you need because someone has manually logged into a server and changed the configuration file. How do you find out that happened? And how do you know that you have consistent monitoring across all environments? So there's really some complex challenges that are starting to arise from this. And then we look at edge locations, and that kind of poses its own challenge where you might have network limitations. Your ops team can't log in and manually update configurations because it's going to be extremely labor intensive to do that for all the environments, and there might be security constraints as well with fragmented networks and so on. So what would a agent fleet management solution look like? So what would be required to be able to manage all your telemetry data? and make sure that you have the right configuration for the right environments, the latest or the version you want to run of those agents. Well, that would look like you would want to have a centralized management platform, right? So you can see everything from one place, whether that's, open source agents, collectors, if that's vendor provided collectors. You want to have a unified view of all your agents so you can control and make sure that there's no configuration drift or a version drift for these. You also want to be able to automate all your updates and configuration changes. You want to be able to manage multiple agents per host from one place. And as your environments grow, you need to be able to handle that scale with deploying new agents as you onboard new systems. How do you make sure you put your kind of golden config on those environments simply without having to manually go and configure something? And then with have everything in a centralized environment, then it opens up for things like supporting predefined configurations. You can have a set of golden configs that you can push out to all your collectors for a certain type, for example. Maybe those configurations are set up in a way that when you apply them, they start collecting metrics that you already have pre-built dashboard for. And as soon as you click a button and deploy, suddenly your dashboards are populating with all this telemetry data and showing insight right away. And also, let's say you have an incident in your environment and you are realizing that I have 1,000 fluent bit agents with very low verbosity in logging, and you suddenly realize you need a lot more data to understand the problem. How can you quickly push that out and make sure you change the configuration in real time? Well, that's something that would be required from a proper solution where you can send configuration changes to all the agents you want to send it to in real time. Then, of course, you want to know if something changes in your environment. If any of the collectors goes offline, if someone went in and manually changed the configuration, you want to be able to see that from a centralized place and even get alerted when something goes offline, or you see you have a open telemetry collector that is not reporting data anymore. In this world, of course, security is super important. You want to be able to have a system that is based on zero trust. You don't want to start sending agent or host credentials across the network. And also, if you're managing a fleet of hundreds or even thousands of collectors and agents, who should be able to see and manage what fleet in your system? So you need to have fine-grained control over who in your monitoring team can do what. And then, of course, we can't be locked into a specific vendor when we do this, because customers and companies use all kinds of flavors of agents and collectors out there. There might be vendor proprietary agents, there might be open source agents, and we need to be able to support all of this from a centralized place. And I talk a little bit about why not being locked into a specific vendor is important. And there's several things here that I want to touch on. And when you're locked into a specific vendor, how do you take control of the telemetry? You're kind of in the hands of what you're getting there. And if you have several different tools, how do you make sure you don't have overlap? How do you bring on new technologies when it emerges in the market, like open telemetry that is constantly evolving? What happens if you have invested heavily in a specific vendor and they decide to change their pricing model, and suddenly it becomes just too expensive to run this solution? There can be a lot of work to move away because it's so tightly integrated. So what we talked about today is to effectively manage all these telemetry agents. It would require a centralized control place that can scale, is secure, without locking you into a vendor, and being able to manage all your agents out there. And there's so many environments, agent types, and updates happening, and this needs to be kind of tamed. And I've talked a lot about the challenges today, but I would like to give you a solution for this. So this is why you should tune into our next webinar, where we will present a Apica solution to this and how we solve for all of your telemetry needs and manage your collection. Make sure you sign up and join that webinar. Between now and then, if you want to know more about this, please reach out and we can schedule some time, and we can even demo and go over how we solve for all these problems. And if there are any questions right now, feel free to post those and we'll try to address them.